Welcome back to the Bit Beacon broadcast. This is episode 4. We're recording this on October 18th. Not Tuesday, a Wednesday this week.
Right.
I'm here, Taylor, aka Kodaks, and we've got...
I'm Rick, Ravenheart for short.
And we're back with some more news, some more discussion. Let's just jump straight into our usual first segment. What are we playing? What are we buying?
All right, you first.
All right, me first. I'll go first this week. What have I been playing? Not a whole lot different. We did mention last week that Honkai Star Rail is now available on PlayStation 5, so I was able to successfully log into my existing account and continue playing the game there, and I gotta say, it looks incredible on the PS5. Surprisingly, it's a very... I was used to playing with touchscreen, so I was a little worried how that would translate with the controls, but it's been pretty seamless getting used to playing the game with the controller. And it has lots of little tutorials, like what buttons you should press to do different actions. It doesn't like leave you guessing to like, how do I open this menu, that kind of a thing. I know, Rick, you said you were going to check it out. Did you have a chance to?
So I've downloaded it. I am excited to play it. It hasn't happened yet. But yeah, all right. It's turn-based RPG, like no question.
You got it. Yeah, and it's very like character driven. Like it's all about the characters, really, and just like their individual stories as well as the stories of each of the planets. I think you'll be super into it. It's a good time.
Yeah. I can tell.
I'm excited to talk about it with you eventually.
We will
next week, hopefully. And I did pick up some games, or I should say some shipments that I placed a while back finally arrived. I have the new Dragon Quest Infinity Strash, The Adventure of Dai.
Nice.
This is a game that we talked about, I think in the first or second episode. We talked about how Square Enix wasn't publishing a physical copy in the West. Mm-hmm. Well, my import Asia, I cannot say Asia correctly. I don't know what's going on with that. My Asia English copy arrived, and it looks very, very nice. Love having the physical copy in my hand. Unfortunately, the game has not been reviewing so well, which isn't a deal breaker for me. It doesn't stop me from checking out a game I'm interested in.
That's just other people's opinion.
Right, but there does seem to be a big consensus that it's not that great. But not going to stop me from checking it out at some point. And more than anything, I'm happy to have it as part of my Dragon Quest collection, which I have pretty much complete at this time. Well, I mean, I should say I have every English Dragon Quest game.
Super Nintendo and everything?
Sorry, let me rephrase. Every game that can be played on a handheld console.
Okay.
So I have all the Game Boy Dragon Quest. I have all the DS Dragon Quest. I have all the 3DS Dragon Quest.
I was gonna say that's a big statement.
What's crazy though is every single game is playable. Every game in the series is playable in that format.
Gotcha.
I don't have like the Super Famicom exclusive releases and things like that. I would love to import the Super Famicom versions in box because the Akira Toriyama artwork in like a landscape format on all their boxes there, it looks so nice. And I don't know, something gets... while the early Dragon Quest games were known as Dragon Warrior here in the States,
right?
Because of some copyright stuff that Nintendo was worried about back then, they have some nice box arts, but they're not the original box art. They were like watered down, or they were supposed to be for an American audience. They thought like, oh, Americans won't like this anime aesthetic. They want this very
action movie 80s style.
Yeah, like over dramatic, like proportion. It reminds me of the old Mega Man box arts where it was like had this dude in a blue suit and he looked so serious.
It's like the textbook example of what you're talking about.
Another game I picked up along with my order of Infinity Strash, Dragon Quest, is Romancing Saga Minstrel Song Remastered for the Nintendo Switch. I bundled this with my order of the Dragon Quest game to get free shipping. Mm-hmm. And I've been excited to check out a Romancing Saga game. I've never played any of these. I know the Saga series was Final Fantasy. What did they call it? Final Fantasy Adventure?
Oh, yeah, it was Final Fantasy Adventure on Game Boy.
On Game Boy, yeah. The Saga series got its start on Game Boy.
Correct, yeah.
But they didn't want to call it Saga when they localized it here in the US, so they just slapped the Final Fantasy brand on it, even though it has nothing to do with Final Fantasy.
Right.
But they thought it would, for marketing purposes, they thought it would make it sell more, which it did, right. But it's left some people confused.
Right. It's all mixed up.
Yeah. But I believe this one was originally a PS1 game, and this got re-released last year, I want to say it was. Yeah, 2022.
So real quick, last week, when I bought all those Super Famicom games, I picked up Romancing Saga and Romancing Saga 3,
Okay.
So it's interesting that you picked this up.
I picked it up, yeah, the remaster version. And this isn't just like a straight port. So I would consider it a different game than the original game.
Definitely.
I believe it has like maybe some content that was like originally cut, from the original release that they were able to restore. I think there was a whole playable character from the original game that never made it into the final product, so they've restored that character's stuff to this game, like his whole story arc.
Was this a Square Enix release, or was it...
Yeah, this is published by Square Enix.
Okay, I wasn't sure if it was like one of the limited...
Again, now this is one of the ones that you can't get physically here in the States.
Gotcha.
I had to import it. It's got kind of a weird rating.
Oh, it's got the Japanese rating.
It's not Japanese because it's completely in English. They make these Asia English releases for places like Taiwan and Hong Kong.
Okay.
Where like they predominantly speak English, or English is like a well-known language there, and so yeah, they come with English on the cart, and the packaging is all in English. So it's nice if you're looking to add the game to your collection, but maybe don't want the Japanese version because you'd rather have the spines or whatever in English.
Right.
I like them because it's what's really interesting is that where it says Square Enix on the back, the publisher, it has their support website as the .eu Square Enix website, which is really interesting to me. Same thing with the Dragon Quest game.
I wonder if they go with European assets for, stuff within the game too.
I already talked about Detective Pikachu last week.
You did.
Or that I was getting it?
You mentioned that.
Okay, I don't know why I have this here with me. But one other thing that I'd like to talk about is this game right here, Super Blood Hockey. Okay. Now, it doesn't look like much of anything. The cover looks kind of, I don't know, low budget.
Right.
Looks like some shovelware kind of thing. I don't know how the game is by any means whatsoever.
Where did you get it?
Okay, so we've talked about small indie publishers like Limited Run Games, Strictly Limited Games, other places like that. Well, a few years back, this company called Limited Rare Games appeared, and their whole social media thing is like making fun of the FOMO aspect of all these things. So they've like ramped up the FOMO to like another level where like when they sell a game, it's only available for like 3 hours on their website, and it's like they never tell anybody when it's going to appear. You just have to happen to be there at the right time, or someone has to like post about it and it has to go like kind of viral or something.
Wow.
So they put out their very first game was this game called Poop Slinger.
Okay,
for PS4.
We've talked about this company before.
Privately, yeah. And that game goes for like thousands of dollars or something like that.
The Vita version or something.
No, it was only on PS4.
Oh,
They've only done PS4 releases. So when I happened to finally be on their website at the right time, even though I had no interest in it really, I couldn't help myself but put in an order. And I mean, they don't communicate at all. So you put that order in, you're giving them $30, and then you're just hoping that your order shows up one day.
Gotcha.
Like I got no email about my order shipping. It just happened to show up last week, and I was thrilled that it actually was here. So yeah, I've finally got a limited rare game in my collection.
Cool.
So yeah, I'm curious to see if this will hold any kind of value going forward, or if it's just kind of, if people are kind of over it and don't even really care anymore.
Are you going to try to play it?
Definitely not. This is a game that is just for, it's more of a curiosity than anything. Right. Not so much something I'm sure you could probably get a digital version of this game for like $5 or something like that.
Probably, yeah. Looks that way.
But we're judging a book by its cover here. No offense to the Super Blood Hockey devs.
No.
I'm curious about how you guys got involved with limited rare games. I don't think anybody's ever really talked. Nobody knows who they are.
Oh yeah,
aren't
they European?
No, this is an ESRB release.
Okay.
So there, I do have the label, the shipping label. I took a picture of it with their address on it.
Oh yeah. Okay.
So I don't know. Maybe one day I'll try to do a deep dive into where the heck this came from, or where they came from. But aside from that, I think that's all we really have to say. You haven't picked any new games up, right?
No, I haven't. I did get my Super Famicom all hooked up, and I have been playing Feta, the Emblem of Justice.
Not the cheese.
Not the cheese.
The Super Famicom game that you bought at
Book Off
last week. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's beautiful. I don't know what's going on yet.
Okay.
I'm trying to figure out the battle system still.
Okay.
It's definitely a tactical RPG.
Is it like grid based?
It is.
Okay.
And
how quickly does it like put you into a battle?
There is a bunch of animation at the beginning.
Okay.
I'm going to talk about it more once I get a better grasp on the game and what's going on and the story and stuff. It goes through a lot of dialogue and then you end up in a Fire Emblem style battle.
Okay.
And I've done the first chapter. Still don't fully understand the battle system.
Okay.
I'm working.
What seems different about it than like Fire Emblem, which is maybe straightforward to you?
It seems to have different mechanics. You engage the enemy the same way, but where in Fire Emblem you have the weapon triangle and stuff like that, this is something totally different.
Okay.
With strengths and weaknesses and what works and what doesn't, the strategy end of it. And
so you think it's more like this character's weak to fire and this character's weak to ice, that kind of a thing?
Yeah, kind of.
Okay.
I don't know.
Okay.
I'm still figuring it out.
Were you able to use any of your live translating things to help you out?
It wasn't working as well as I had hoped.
Okay.
Yeah.
So. Yeah, sometimes with the old Pixel games, it doesn't really read it.
I don't know if that's the issue. I don't know what the issue is. It really, the English that my phone interprets is...
It looked like gibberish?
Yeah, pretty much. 9 times out of 10, I couldn't understand what was being conveyed.
Okay.
And so I'm looking for, game facts explanation or something like that for the time being. But I am enjoying it, believe it or not, regardless of...
How's the music?
It's perfect.
Yeah.
It's your fantasy Super Nintendo style music.
Yeah, I mean, that's... the 16-bit era has two main music styles. You got the Super Famicom, the Super Nintendo.
Yep.
And you got the Sega Genesis.
Yep.
And I've seen people like war online about like who has the better sound font, It
comes down to the game in question a lot of the time.
I think
there's
so.
Sonic 3 on Genesis and
which is infamous.
Infamous.
For I mean, at this point, seemingly being confirmed that Michael Jackson was involved.
It is a fact that Michael Jackson.
Right, but apparently his involvement is mostly related to him having his like secondhand guy do a bunch of music for the game, and Michael kind of put his stamp on it.
Right.
Yeah. There's a documentary I think that came out a year or two ago.
I've seen videos of it. I don't know if I've seen that, but I have seen like other stuff on YouTube.
Yeah, his like right hand guy who was working with Michael Jackson at the time basically came out and said, "Yeah, I did all that."
Yeah.
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 But still, an interesting little piece of history.
Good stuff. I'm looking forward to playing more of this game, and I will be, and I'll be talking about it more.
Cool. All right, so we're gonna jump into the news.
Yeah.
We're gonna be talking PlayStation's new cloud streaming for PS5 games. Now, PlayStation has been in the cloud streaming of games for a while. Years ago, they had something called PlayStation Now, which back on the PS3 would allow you to stream PS3 games without having to download them. You could unlock trophies. And what they were essentially doing was connecting you to PS3 hardware, often some server farm somewhere, and you would boot up the game that way.
Right.
And this is essentially kind of the same thing, except it's an exclusive benefit just for PlayStation Plus premium subscribers.
Right. $160 a year.
$160 a year to be a PlayStation Plus premium subscriber. Now, PlayStation Plus has been around for a long time as well, since the PS3 era. And they've been raising the price over time, and it's getting a little ridiculous. It's now $80 a year.
Yeah, wow.
And what that enables you to do is have cloud backup saves. Mm-hmm. You get 2 or 3 or 4 free games every month from the PlayStation Store of varying quality and of interest to you.
Right.
And you get to play games online. So any paid game that requires either an online connection, or if there's like an optional multiplayer mode, if you don't have PlayStation Plus, you can't access that. Now, they have made exceptions for free-to-play games, mm-hmm. where you do not need PlayStation Plus to play those online. But it's kind of weird and gatekeepy, but I guess all 3 of them are doing it now. Nintendo does it, although a lot more inexpensively.
Right.
And Xbox pretty much does it too.
Right.
But this is a night, at least, they raised the prices for all these things. At least they're giving one of the tiers a new perk.
Right. I mean, this has been, a long time coming, mm-hmm. I feel like, and, Google Stadia tried their hand, obviously. We have to bring up Google Stadia. But this is not...
What's Google Stadia for the people at home?
Okay, so Google, a few years back, was it 2016?
No, maybe not that far back. But, definitely 2018, 2019, I think they announced this project.
Right. It was a console, if you want to call it that. It was a gaming platform that only streamed cloud games.
Right out of your browser.
Right.
Right out of Google Chrome.
Right. And it long story short, it pretty much fell on its face.
It collapsed, yeah. No one... I mean, it had people in the ecosystem purchasing games there, but...
What's significant to take away from Google Stadia is that they charged full price for individual titles on their platform. Even though you don't own the game, you stream it from Google servers, and... they did end up refunding a lot of people, but still, if we're talking about the model, that's the wrong way to do cloud gaming.
Yeah, it didn't work. Now, this makes sense. It's just an extra perk. You're not purchasing these games. You don't have to purchase them to play them.
Right.
These are going to be games that they provide as a free benefit as part of your $160 membership.
An existing service.
Yeah. Now, with Google Stadia, I should mention that I believe they did also have maybe some kind of free game program. I don't know if...
They probably did.
I don't know. I can't remember if you had to pay for it. But yeah, they did eventually refund everyone, which was generous of them.
If I remember correctly, you had to pay to be subscribed to Google Stadia, and then you had to buy each title you wanted.
You might be right, yeah.
Yeah, which is... That's...
Yeah. I mean, it got to the point where they were giving out these, Google Stadia memberships for free. They sold a controller, a Google Stadia controller, mm-hmm. Which I hear is actually a pretty decent controller.
Right.
But that was the only physical hardware you could buy. I think maybe...
Wasn't there a little box or something?
No, I don't think Stadia had a box.
Okay. I thought there was a little receiver device or something like that.
Oh, you could maybe use a Chromecast or something like that.
Yeah, that might be right.
But not a big success. I mean, if the biggest player in the world can't make cloud gaming work, mm-hmm. then, I wouldn't be too confident about anybody else trying to go all in on that anytime soon.
No. And I think PlayStation, Nintendo, and Xbox all have learned a lot of lessons from witnessing Google Stadia and the way that it went.
I mean, they're what's interesting, on Nintendo Switch, they actually have some games that, because they're not possible to be played on Nintendo Switch, you can purchase cloud versions of these games.
Really?
And play them on Nintendo Switch, but you're streaming the game through the cloud. And we're talking about Resident Evil games and Kingdom Hearts games.
Classic titles?
No, newer ones.
Okay.
And it's been interesting. I haven't heard too much. I can't imagine that many people are buying into games these ways, and I would be really hesitant to pay full price for a cloud game that Square Enix might just be like, oh well, there's only like 10 players a year on this, so we're flipping it off.
Yeah.
And then you definitely won't be getting your money back.
Oh, no way.
No, they're not going to do what Google did.
No.
So yeah, I can't imagine I would ever want to do that.
Okay, so if you've listened to any of our previous episodes, you know where we stand on the physical versus digital versus cloud.
Yeah. This is even worse. This is worse than digital.
This is worse than digital.
Yeah, I would take digital over... Like, oh, you can only stream games forever now?
Right.
Forget it. I'm done with gaming.
Yeah.
You know, I'll just play old games.
Right. I don't even consider having a digital file owning a game. This is really not owning it. Like, this is, you don't have access to anything.
Yeah, that means they could just turn a switch off and on and you lose access to it. I mean, you can almost do the same thing with digital, but at least if you had it downloaded before the stores went down, you could access it as long as your hard drive lasts.
At least there's some digital property in your possession.
But yeah, cloud streaming, that's not ever something...
I don't see this overtaking.
No.
Like, it might... exist alongside gaming as it exists today, but I don't see it.
I mean, the internet infrastructure in the United States isn't ready for this.
Right. There is that too.
Yeah.
That's one concern. That'll change over time.
Will it?
I don't know.
I'm not convinced that it will, because like the internet companies have these monopolies. No one else is allowed to lay down lines. The only other alternative is something like Starlink, which is not great for gaming.
No. There are internet companies with a lot of regulations that are restrictive to other people, other companies coming in and laying
because
lines.
of agreements they've made with local governments and stuff. Like, oh, sure, we'll do all this for cheap, or we'll pay for it, but no one else can ever come in here and lay down any lines.
Exactly.
And so now we're just screwed. Everywhere only has 1 to 2 options.
Right. And if we're going to convert to fiber optic, this and that, like that involves replacing all the lines in every area, and that's
do you remember Google Fiber?
I do.
Yeah, there was like, oh my god, they're going to change the internet,
Well, it still exists, doesn't it?
Only in very select cities, and they no longer are expanding it. Like, there's just too much red tape for them to cut through.
It's not worth the effort.
And they only did it in cities that were like more recently like developing into like metropolitan areas.
Right.
Just no way.
I see your point there. So there's that aspect, and then there's also the market and what percentage of gamers is actually gonna be open to cloud gaming as their primary method.
Yeah, on Nintendo Switch with those cloud games, I feel like it's like a desperation thing. Like someone only owns a Nintendo Switch and they're never gonna buy a PS5 or Xbox Series X.
Right.
But they really want to play Kingdom Hearts 3. So it's like, okay, I guess I'll do it on my Switch via streaming.
Right.
But yikes. I mean, maybe if you docked your Switch and had an Ethernet cable plugged directly into your Switch, it might not be too bad.
Yeah.
But, oh my god, I mean, that's an action game. I cannot imagine playing an action game with that kind of latency.
No. And with that kind of hardware.
Yeah.
No way.
I've seen videos of some of these streaming games in action, especially early on when they first launch, and there's like way too many people trying to connect. Oh, that's another thing I've seen. I've seen it to where like someone wants to play the game, and like a queue will pop up, and they have to wait till other players stop playing the game so they can play it because there's just too much traffic.
Yeah. Like,
could you imagine? Like, okay, I just paid $60 for this game.
That's not the experience of that game. Like, you're getting a different experience. Yeah. That's, I don't know. Also, regarding this PS5 cloud streaming, it's not going to be compatible with PlayStation Portal, which is another
That's
aspect.
the device that you're picking up in a couple months.
Which this doesn't impact me because I wouldn't be playing cloud games.
It would be like Streamception. You're streaming your PS5, which would then be streaming a game, and so that's just too much streaming going on all at once.
Right.
Makes sense that Sony would restrict that.
Yeah.
All right. So you may remember from our first episode, we spoke about one of the original founders of Platinum Games, Hideki Kamiya, who announced he would be leaving Platinum Games. Mm-hmm. That finally happened last week, and he immediately put out a YouTube video about what's going on for him next. He's going to be, making videos on YouTube for a year.
Yeah.
It seems he didn't explicitly say that he signed a non-compete disclosure with Platinum Games, but it just happens to be exactly 1 year he's not allowed to make games.
Right. I enjoyed the video. It was interesting. He's obviously got that cheeky kind of personality, so he likes to.
Well, I mean, let's picture it for the listeners. Like, it literally shows him carrying like a box of his,
and it's all toys.
Yeah, from his desk or whatever.
And then
he's walking out of the studio.
Yeah, he's walking out of the studio. He meets up with the interviewers, starts answering a bunch of questions. He pitches his, that he's looking for work and that kind of thing, but then proceeds to kind of riff on himself a little bit and state that he's not a people person, he doesn't work well, he's not interested in forming business relationships and all this kind of thing, so he's not like trying to paint himself up, as like,
I think
hireable.
Right, exactly. I mean, the end of the episode shows him taking off in his Lamborghini. What's the exact name of the car?
Right, so Automotive Rick to the rescue here. Yeah, he ends the video by him pulling out of the Platinum Games parking garage in a Lamborghini Countach, a red one, and he states that he's going to go to the unemployment office, which I don't think he needs unemployment insurance.
Probably not. Although I wonder how that works in Japan. I guess they do have unemployment.
I'm sure they do. I really don't think he was.
I think he was being cheeky, for sure.
For sure.
And his $100,000-$200,000 sports car.
The most interesting, nugget of information for me, just because I think differently, and this kind of provides a little bit of insight into the financial lifestyle of these industry legends of his kind of stature. He states in the video that he is looking for a job that pays over 100 million yen, which is $668,000 in USD. And I don't think that's a joke. I think that is what he's used to making. I can totally see that. I imagine he probably was getting paid more than that at Platinum. Because he's, if you consider the context of his current position, he's unemployed asking for work.
See, I almost wonder if this video was not just a fun little tongue-in-cheek thing for the fans, but also, realistically letting potential suitors or future employers know what kind of price tag he's asking for.
Right, obviously, and he's not shy about putting that out there.
I do think it's a little brave of him.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
I mean, he hasn't personally,
He doesn't seem to care.
No, he doesn't.
He doesn't.
He really doesn't.
And
that's what I love about him.
Right. And he also doesn't care to the point where he's willing to just tell you in the same video that he doesn't work well with people and he enjoys being alone.
I'm going to be a liability. I'm not going to be, super talkative during meetings.
Right.
But hey, if you want to hire me or you want to give me a studio, this is how much money I need to make every year.
That particular car, I don't know what his mileage is. I see that it's registered from the video. I would estimate that probably would have costed him, if it is in fact his, which it probably is, 200,000 to 450,000 tops in USD. That's what I've seen those cars go for.
Wow.
And definitely fits his salary. It's not the most expensive race car you could own. But
I've heard stories of people like Shigeru Miyamoto, the creator of Mario, the creator of Donkey Kong, the creator of Zelda, the creator of Star Fox.
Right.
Not making that kind of money. I mean, which is mind-blowing to me.
Right.
On one hand.
I think there probably was a time in the industry when those kinds of legends weren't getting paid.
I mean, I'm not even talking that far ago. I'm talking about like the Wii U era, like a decade ago. Mm-hmm. You know, those kinds of. I mean, now with the Switch just printing money the way that we did.
Right.
I mean, maybe they're making big bucks again. I do think they get bonuses, but I don't believe his salary is particularly extraordinary.
So do you think he was joking when he asked for that much?
When Kamiya was asking for that
right.
much? That I don't know. I don't know. I thought that was like, whoa, you're asking for almost $750,000.
Right. But if you think about the CEOs of these companies, I know it's different, totally different. Bobby Kotick, who we're going to talk about later, $32 million a year.
Right. Yeah,
I mean, Kamiya's a director.
Yeah, I mean, Platinum Games is a developer.
Right.
They're not even in the business of publishing games.
No, that's true. But they're definitely a high budget AAA developer.
But their games sell 1 to 3 million copies, whereas like an Activision Blizzard game is expected to sell like 100 million copies.
Right. But if you think about Kamiya, his legacy and the amount of highly successful titles he's released.
I mean,
Okami.
Again, when we say successful, you don't mean successful in terms of like long-lasting, forever sales. You're talking about like very highly well-regarded and reviewed games. You know, beloved by players and critics alike.
I mean, mostly, but you don't think Devil May Cry made a lot of money?
I mean, the series at this point has. I believe Kamiya was only involved with like 1 or 2 of them.
Right.
The early ones. I guess. Yeah, I don't know, man. $600,000.
Yeah. I can see that kind of money being passed around.
Yeah, I don't know. I just have a hard time believing that Platinum Games has that money to pay him that much money for basically. I mean, the last decade he hasn't even really made a game directly. Like, not since the Wonderful 101.
Right, but that's a status that he's achieved at this point. That's not how he started.
No, I agree. I just wonder. This makes me think more about maybe he left because they saw he wasn't really doing a whole lot of anything, and they were paying him $750,000 every year.
Right.
And they were like, we either need to, renegotiate your salary, you got to get involved in the process more,
right?
Or we don't have a place for you here,
right?
You know?
Yeah, that's possible.
I mean, there's been rumored that Platinum Games is not in the best financial position and that they kind of really rely on these contract jobs that they get because their own games don't necessarily sell super well.
I see what you're saying, but still the publishers that they work with have a lot of money.
Right.
And, when they sign these deals, like, you guarantee it's multiple millions.
I mean, look at Nintendo. They've been partnering a lot Platinum Games, especially since the Switch came out. Like, most of Platinum Games have come out on Switch or only come out on Switch even.
Right.
And Nintendo has stated that they do look at acquiring studios, it's not, but they don't just like go around doing it just to do it. I wonder why Platinum Games, which seems like, it's a prestigious studio, huge catalog of like well-regarded, well-reviewed games,
and
critics
IPs.
love them. Exactly. Why? I mean, maybe Platinum Games doesn't want to sell out, but I don't know. I've just heard too much that like they're not super financially secure, and it seems like they would be interested in someone, maybe not bailing them out, but like acquiring them, and they still have like autonomy, but they have like financial freedom.
Right.
But the fact that Nintendo hasn't done it leads me to believe that someone from Nintendo has probably analyzed Platinum Games and said, no, they're too much of a liability.
Yeah.
For one reason or another.
That's a lot of speculation.
It is a lot of speculation.
I get what you're saying. Getting back to Kamiya, Lamborghinis aside, he doesn't strike me as someone who really lives a super overly lavish lifestyle. He does talk about, like, going to the grocery store and
Right.
buying onions and other ingredients and cooking for himself.
I hope on his new YouTube channel he does like a Cribs episode.
That would be awesome. That would be cool.
I get to see what he lives like. I imagine he won't. One thing I wanted to say before we move on to the next topic, did you see how he was wearing a Clover Studios
I
t-shirt?
did notice that. Yeah.
I thought that was pretty awesome.
I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah.
I forgot to bring that up. But yeah, and I mean, that makes sense. Clover is his true legacy.
Yeah.
That's where he made, that was like, maybe not in terms of dollar signs, but,
Right.
In terms of like...
That was where he went from. That was where he became a name.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And a lot of legendary titles came out of that studio.
Cult hits, for sure.
And legendary people.
Yeah.
Who went on to different studios.
Yeah. All right, so we're going to move on to our next topic here. We're talking the Microsoft merger with Activision. After more than a year and a half, or about a year and a half, the acquisition finally closed. This was originally announced back in January of 2002 that Microsoft would be acquiring Activision Blizzard for $69 billion.
Mm-hmm.
That's billion, not million.
Oh no, we're talking about the big boys now.
Yeah, big bucks for big boys.
Yeah.
That's the name of this episode.
Right.
This had to go through a lot of regulatory checks all across the world, not just here in the U.S., in South America, in Europe, in the U.K., in the U.S., in Canada, maybe even.
Right.
And there were a lot of roadblocks thrown up their way.
It's something that has to be compliant in multiple regions.
Right. Well, I mean, someone, Sony instigated this,
like
putting
counter campaign.
Yeah, a counter campaign against this acquisition,
right.
Because a lot of these Activision Blizzard intellectual properties, like Call of Duty especially, bring in a lot of money on PlayStation platform.
Right.
So now Sony is scared.
Right.
That oh my God, they're gonna eventually make Call of Duty exclusive to Xbox, and then we won't have access to that money anymore.
Right. We'll get to it, but that gets into Ubisoft Plus.
Let's just talk about some of the intellectual properties. They're acquiring Call of Duty, Warcraft, Diablo, StarCraft, Crash Bandicoot, Tony Hawk Pro Skater, Spyro the Dragon.
Yep.
I mean, the list goes on, and that's just like some real surface level stuff. I mean,
right.
Activision's back catalog, Guitar Hero.
Yep.
All of those games.
Everything that King put out.
Yeah, all of the King's mobile games.
Right.
Yeah.
That's a lot. I would say that some of these wouldn't really impact Sony, like Warcraft and Diablo have never.
Well, no, Diablo has been on PlayStation since Diablo 3.
It has now, yeah, right.
And Diablo 4 just came out earlier this year. Now, Microsoft has said that they have no plans to make Call of Duty exclusive. In fact, I believe they said that for at least a decade, they guarantee Sony that it will never drop exclusivity, or that it will become an exclusive property of only Xbox and PC.
Right.
And they've also, as part of that same statement, they've signed an agreement with Nintendo that they will start bringing Call of Duty games to future Nintendo consoles, which would signal that the next Nintendo Switch must be pretty powerful if it can handle like a very gritty, realistic, graphics hog, intense game like Call of Duty.
It lends itself to that theory.
Yeah.
Definitely.
So that's interesting, and I'm sure people will be excited to have something like Call of Duty portably on the go. One other little piece of news out of this was that Activision's CEO, someone who is not particularly well beloved by anyone at the studio, or the general public at large, Bobby Kotick, is staying on board, but only until the end of the year, and then he's gone.
Oh, yeah.
Phil Spencer is firing Bobby Kotick. But Bobby Kotick is not going away empty-handed.
No.
He's walking away with, some of that $69 billion.
Oh,
in fact,
definitely.
A lot of it.
Okay, so Bobby Kotick has long since been the highest paid CEO in the gaming industry.
Oh, yeah.
Number one.
Yeah.
In fact, the runner-up, I can't remember exactly who it is, but last I checked, which was a couple years ago, I think their salary was around $12 million or something like that. Like, not even half of what Bobby
makes.
Yeah, that's crazy.
And that's not even counting like Bobby's bonuses.
So that speaks to the guy's negotiation abilities. So you guarantee that golden parachute is solid gold. Yeah.
And how much stock does he have that has now just been converted into Microsoft bucks?
Right.
You know?
Yeah, so he's he's doing well for himself.
And you know what, I will give a little bit of props to Bobby Kotick.
Oh, no, I was going to do that too. Okay. He's been with the company since 91.
Well, he
founded, Activision existed before, right. You know, they existed in the 80s.
He resurrected the brand, basically.
Exactly. In 91. And he was there for the original Guitar Hero, et cetera, et cetera.
Like, I mean, smash hit after smash hit under his guidance.
Right.
He's
not an artist.
He's a jerk, too.
Oh, yeah.
Big time jerk. Known for incendiary comments, mass layoffs, meanwhile he's laughing all the way to the bank every year.
Oh yeah, and on the walking over the graves of the people he fired.
Yeah, I mean, as studios at across Activision Blizzard tried to unionize and things, he was there trying to squash any of that.
Yeah.
People that were trying to start these unions were getting fired and let go.
We talk about a lot of suits on this podcast. He is the highest paid suit, and one of the biggest.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. I can't imagine he's going to do anything in the industry after this. He's just done, right? He's got to be done. He's going to have so much money. He's going to have literally billions of dollars.
We'll see. These kinds of people in my experience and my observation, can never have enough money.
Yeah.
You're right. We'll see.
Yeah. There was that movie. He cast him. He was somehow able to cast himself in it. Some Brad Pitt movie called Moneyball.
What?
Bobby Kotick has like a small role in the film. I don't know if he was a producer on the film or friends with someone who was a producer, but he was able to buy his way into becoming an actor.
You're right.
And he played like a corporate like baseball executive or something like that, I believe.
What the heck?
Yeah. So,
I didn't know that.
Yeah, if you want to go watch Moneyball with Brad Pitt and Bobby Kotick,
Okay.
Let me know how it is. I've never watched it.
Yeah, he's kind of the go-to example of the CEO type in the industry.
But, literally took a brand from essentially extinction to the heights where they're now worth $69 billion.
Right, which you guarantee is his casino chip that he uses in his negotiations.
Isn't it wild, though, that Crash Bandicoot and Spyro the Dragon, who were effectively mascots for PlayStation, are now owned by their chief rival, Microsoft?
The industry has a funny way of doing that. That's not the first time something like that has happened.
No, I mean, Crash and Spyro have been bounced around the industry.
Right. Sonic's on Nintendo consoles now.
Yeah.
And,
I mean, yeah.
That happens.
If the day ever comes where a Crash Bandicoot game comes out and it's not on PlayStation, that would just be that'd be kind of tragic, I think.
Oh yeah,
especially Spyro. But I'm hopeful under some of these studios under Activision Blizzard that had made games like Tony Hawk Pro Skater. They just made a new one that came out a couple years ago that was really well regarded. There was a really expansive Spyro trilogy, like from the ground up reimagining of the original games. The new Crash Bandicoot that just came out. These games all sold well for any publisher but Activision, effectively.
Right.
Activision sees these games selling 5-6 million copies. That's not enough for them.
No,
so you know what Activision does? They start having all those studios work on Call of Duty.
Yeah.
Oh, you're gonna make gun skins. You're gonna make all these little. You're gonna work on the expansion for this game. So I'm hopeful that now that these studios are under Microsoft's leadership, that they'll be able to go back to creating games that they're passionate about and not just, weapon skins for Call of Duty.
I mean, is Microsoft that different in that regard, though?
Everything I've seen in recent years is that Microsoft has been pretty good about letting developers make the games that they want to make and giving them the time to do that effectively. Like their bigger studios.
When they're not on top as a console holder, it seems like they're more, less corporate in their approach. But I still see this as a corporate environment, hugely corporate environment, merging with another hugely corporate environment.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think some of these regulatory places were right to question if this should be allowed.
Right.
Like we're talking about, it's not just Xbox merging with Activision Blizzard. It's Microsoft absorbing Activision Blizzard.
Right.
Just adding another, appendage to Microsoft's
group of appendages.
Frankenstein body.
Activision is already a merger.
Yeah.
It's already a giant merger between Blizzard, Activision, and King.
I remember when that happened. I think we were in high school.
Right. That was a big deal.
Yeah.
That was seen as
I was distraught.
Right.
I was like, oh my god, Blizzard is going to lose its autonomy and now Activision's going to tell them what to do? I was so worried.
Right.
I was a big World of Warcraft player at the time.
So this is just like Inception, basically, in a way.
Yeah. I guess I'm more optimistic for these studios that they won't just be stuck making Call of Duty crap anymore.
You know what? With Bobby Kotick gone at the end of the year, I'll be optimistic with you.
Yeah.
I think maybe a lot of that heavy-handed, Call of Duty, everyone work on Call of Duty came from him.
Definitely.
And we'll see if that changes.
I would be... I don't know why I've imagined that at the end of the year is going to come a week before the new year, and they're going to announce Bobby Kotick is staying on through spring of 2020.
Oh yeah. Well, something like
they
that. They
just keep pushing it back.
Right. He's fired, but he's not really.
Yeah. But hopefully he's gone soon.
Right.
Because I'm ready for Activision to get back to their roots.
You're right.
Making a variety of games, not just one game every single year.
If Microsoft allows this, it's kind of yet to be foreseen.
The Xbox head honcho, Phil Spencer, has made comments recently suggesting that studios will be allowed to make the games they want to make.
Okay. That's a positive sign.
Actions speak louder than words, but, it does give me hope that is accurate.
Right.
So why don't we take a quick break real quick?
Yep.
And we'll be right back with another discussion. Thank you.
All right, and we're back from our break. We want to continue with a discussion topic that we've been trying to talk about over the past several episodes.
This was on our notes for the very first episode,
yes.
And we have just been kicking it from episode to episode, so we're not letting this episode go by without talking about it.
It's not exactly a piece of news, but it's something that we've noticed and have been feeling for quite some time as we watch the Nintendo Directs and the Sony State of Plays, and just overall paying attention to the games coming out. We've been feeling, and you can, comment on the website or whatever how you feel about this. Just the amount of games coming out and the size and the quality, it just gets overwhelming, especially when you consider that gamers are getting older and taking on more responsibility with more limited hours to play.
Well, that brings up a question. Do you think younger people are not as into games as people our age and a little older than us and a little less older than us are as big of gamers as we are?
I think their attention spans are less. That's,
All right, hopefully we're not insulting any Zoomers right now.
Well, I mean, you're listening to a millennial-run podcast, so...
Yeah, I mean... I don't know. So that's kind of a scary thing for the industry if that's true. If people aren't gaming as much that are younger.
I do. I mean, I definitely think younger people game a lot, especially if you look at just the amount of people that show up to Minecon and places like that. But that's the thing. They're playing big games.
Right. Minecon being a Minecraft convention.
Right. But as far as the gamers who have been around for, since Genesis, people our age, it gets overwhelming. You watch one of these Nintendo Directs, and it seems like at least half the titles you want to play them.
Yeah.
But you just know what the investment is going to be, time-wise and money-wise, with games reaching like $70 now.
Well, I mean, it's interesting. We now have more money than we had when we were kids, right?
True.
So we can buy all the games we want.
Yeah, well...
For the most part.
For the most part, I guess.
But we don't have the time that we had back then to play them.
Right. So we're stuck buying a bunch of games and having, 20 games sitting on our shelves still in the cellophane.
Yeah.
In my case, at least.
You know how many games I got in cellophane, dude?
Right.
We're in the hundreds.
Yeah. When are you going to play them? Because more games are coming out.
I know.
And not just a few. Like,
it's almost like
30 more games.
If I don't play a game when it comes out, within like the first 3 or 4 months that it comes out, the odds of me ever getting around to it are really low. It's not impossible.
Right.
There are games that I will definitely make time for. But yeah, because more games are coming, it's just this problem. And I want to support the industry. It's an industry I'm really passionate about.
Right.
Especially smaller developers. There's a lot of really cool indie or mid-size games, small-size games that I want to support, and so I'll buy the physical versions because I think they look cool. They seem like they would be fun to play, but I don't have time to play them.
Right.
Especially a lot of these niche Japanese games. Some of these ones I'm importing, I don't have time for them.
And that feels backwards in a way because those are the games you can finish rather quickly compared to the AAA titles.
Right, but then, you have these heavily marketed, these massive in scope, these, 80, 90, 100, 200-hour games.
Right.
That,
Open world, endless side quests.
Yeah, so you're just constantly getting distracted.
Yeah.
At our age, with the amount of free time we have, if we sit down to play one of these games, that's the only game we're playing for the next 3 to 4 months.
Right.
That's all we'll have time for.
And the golden example I have of a game that's fairly new that you can't not play it is the new Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. I know how big that game is going to be. I own the game, haven't played it, deliberately avoiding it, I feel like, because I just know what I'm getting into.
Yeah. I mean, if you've played The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, it's that game times 3.
Times 3, right.
Effectively.
And that's just nuts. That game does not need to be bigger. It needs to be smaller, if anything.
I mean, I think the game's a masterpiece. I absolutely loved it. Did I do everything? Hell no.
No way.
Will I ever do everything? Hell no. It's not going to happen.
And I'm not denying that the game is a masterpiece. From a development standpoint, you want a bigger, more epic game. When you're designing a game, that's where your brain goes.
I mean, Zelda is now Nintendo's prestige franchise.
Right.
We get one exclusive to a console Zelda game every generation now. I don't count not Skyward Sword, Breath of the Wild as being an exclusive Switch game because it also launched on the Wii U.
Right.
But it seems like we get 1 to 2 games. There's usually a cross-gen Zelda game.
Yeah, there's one in between generations and then one during the generation.
And then maybe it gets ported years later or something.
Right.
But yeah, there seems to be this cross-gen thing ever since Twilight Princess on the GameCube
that was the
Wii.
First. Same was Skyward Sword on 2? No,
Skyward Sword. That was the one that was exclusive. I mean, well, it was. It's now on Switch.
Right.
But that didn't launch on Switch.
Right. But yeah, I mean, I feel empty inside at not playing the newest Zelda game.
I mean, dude, yeah, it's awesome, and for me, a Zelda game is it's got the lore. I want to know what's happening. What's happening to all the characters I love. I gotta know. That's one of those games where it's I don't care if I'm in the middle of another game. I'll drop it
Right.
I mean, earlier this year, I was timing. I can't remember what game I was playing beforehand, but I was making sure that I was done with it right before Zelda came out, because I was like, I know if I'm in the middle of something, I'll never get back to it.
Right.
So I'm going to be playing Zelda for the next 2 months.
And this isn't a complaint about quality. We know the game is going to be good. Yeah. It's, a Zelda game. Not that every Zelda game is perfect, but...
Sure, but this is like the... there's the main Zelda games, and there's sort of like the side Zelda games.
Right.
Generally, the main games are massively critically acclaimed and beloved by all.
Right.
And then the side games, people go either way on them,
Right. Right. But that's the essence of the issue, is just the amount of games and the scope.
Yeah.
And they're good.
Yeah. Oh yeah, you just know. I mean, they spent 7 years on making a direct sequel to Breath of the Wild that reuses all the assets from the original game.
Right. So
that just means speaks, they took their sweet time.
That just speaks to how huge this game.
Right. And people were shocked. People were like, are we really expected to pay for the same exact world that we already purchased with the first game? Like, people were like, this is just an expansion to...
That's a silly argument,
Breath of the Wild. Because it's not. It's not. Like, so much of the world has changed in the few years that have gone by.
Right.
And then there's just so much extra additional stuff.
A lot of studios reuse their assets. A lot of studios reuse their models.
I mean, this is like reusing the base map, like one-to-one practically.
Right, the terrain and stuff. Yeah, I get it. I don't think that is a good argument for it being the same game or the same world. But
yeah, I was I saw a lot of people talking about that online. Like, they're like, I'm not going to pay $70 for the same game again. I was more optimistic. I was like, there's no way Nintendo was charging $10 more for just a regurgitated Breath of the Wild. And thankfully it wasn't that.
Right.
Everyone was proved wrong. In my opinion, I believe they were.
Right. But then, like, you look at the rest of the Nintendo Direct, that wasn't in the Nintendo Direct, but if you look at that's like 30 games that all look good. You want to play Super Mario Wonder, you want to play everything on that list.
I would bet that Wonder is probably not an 80-hour game.
No, but it's just another one on the pile.
Yeah, it's another one on the pile in terms of the quantity aspect.
Right.
Yeah, and that game, all of its reviews just dropped today, and it's getting like massive praise. Like, this is the best 2D Mario game since the SNES, kind of a thing.
And I don't doubt it.
Yeah.
And you also want to play the Princess Peach title. It's just, there's so much.
Yeah.
Regardless of whether they're 400-hour open world, endless side quests, or if it's an 80-hour game.
Right.
That's still a lot of time.
Yeah. I mean, I'd hope Mario Wonder is not more than like 20 hours to get to the ending. I'm sure like it's probably endlessly replayable and that kind of a thing, especially if you want to find all of its secrets. And I would think Princess Peach wouldn't be a super long game either.
Right.
What's it called again? What's the Princess Peach game?
Oh gosh.
Oh man, it's
Showtime. Yeah,
something like that. That's a little embarrassing that we can't remember that. Oh well.
But I mean, open world. We got Spider-Man. That's a 400-hour game. If you want to do everything, it is.
No, I'm gonna say it's no more than 100.
Well, it depends who you are. If you're a completionist, I guarantee you.
I mean, I platinumed the game, which means the original Spider-Man.
Yeah.
And that was that meant you effectively had to 100% the game. You had to find all side quests, all collectibles, all of that. And I think I clocked in somewhere around 60 hours, maybe.
Okay.
So it's not too unreasonable, but it is still a big game.
Right.
60 hours is not a small ask.
Right.
But you have games like
RPGs,
Bethesda's new game, Starfield.
Yeah.
That's easily a game. It's like Skyrim, but in space. So people can spend 200-300 hours in that game probably.
Right.
Before they grow tired and bored.
With anything that has RPG mechanics, farming is involved, especially if you're a completionist. And that's just...
Yeah, I've had to give up being a completionist.
Yeah, and that stinks. That's not...
Well, it's either I get every minuscule little thing just for some internal like satisfaction, or I play more games.
Right.
That's what I've had to make the choice between.
I get why you would do that. Yeah. It's just the fact that you have to do that is just, it stinks.
Yeah. I mean, it's I don't know. Yeah, I can't do it anymore. Yeah, so I just don't.
Yeah.
And I don't let it bother me. It did bother me. There was a time where it did bother me. Where I used to be like, when it came to PlayStation games, I had to get like the platinum trophy for every game I played. And in the last 3, 4, 5 years, I've just decided it's okay if I don't.
Right.
If I just beat the game, that's enough for me. I don't have to do everything. Now, occasionally, I still indulge in a platinum trophy if it's reasonable. But I don't do the platinum trophies where it's like, oh, you got to speed run the game. Oh, you got to do this. You got to do that. You know.
Yeah, like, some of the trophies are kind of ridiculous. Yeah.
Like what they want you to do. And I'm just not going to do that. And, you know, I don't know if you personally consider achievements and trophies as being part of the game.
I do and I don't. Okay. I do think it's kind of separate in a way. But if you are trying to get everything in the game, you are going to get the platinum trophy. Probably,
yeah. I mean, there are some times where like a platinum trophy will have you do some very specific like combat-esque thing that you wouldn't necessarily need to do to 100% the game.
True. Like some 50-time combo or something. Yeah,
get a 50-time kill, or, like never be detected, something like that. Right. Like the game doesn't require that. There's no bonus for doing it in game. But
right. It's just like a trick that you pull off.
It's kind of an external, achievements are sort of an external thing. Although some games do incorporate their achievements into the games themselves. Mm-hmm. With like an internal list.
Right.
Yeah. And so if that happens, then it's like, well,
yeah, right.
Shoot.
Then you have something in the game that you don't have.
Exactly.
But it's a problem. Their games are really good. They've
never been better. They've
never been better. These AAA companies are just pumping them out like crazy. Like there's too many.
2023 especially has just been wild for like extremely well reviewed games. Like it just lined up. I think all the pandemic delays have now kind of culminated into 2023 sort of just being this crazy year of games.
Yeah, and they just keep getting announced. It doesn't slow down. No. You don't get a chance to catch up and play these games.
I mean, next year we're gonna have more than likely a new Nintendo console. I mean, the excitement just doesn't
expect a whole launch list, and I
do wonder what the heck. All right, let's get off topic for a second. What does Nintendo launch the new console with? We're just getting a brand new 2D Mario this year, and a brand new main series Zelda title. So what other? I guess they could have a 3D Mario.
Right.
They could have a 3D Mario.
When was the last Fire Emblem put out? Was it
just this year?
It was this year.
Yeah, Fire Emblem Engage.
Okay. Yeah, that's a good question.
Fire Emblem is not like, we're talking like Nintendo big guns here. Fire Emblem is, I wouldn't call it, it's not on par with Zelda or Mario.
Right. I get it.
But I guess, it has to be 3D Mario next year then.
Yeah.
There hasn't been a 3D Mario since the Switch launched in late 2017. Was when Odyssey came out.
Yeah, that was what I was going to say.
Yeah.
3D Mario.
Technically, there was they ported the Wii U Mario game, Super Mario 3D World.
Mm-hmm. That doesn't count.
Well, but included with Super Mario 3D World was a separate standalone, like, small Mario game called Bowser's Fury that was completely 100% original content. It played differently than Mario World did, like the physics and things were different.
Gotcha.
So it was sort of like a third of a game.
Yeah.
As like a bonus with the remastered version of the Wii U game. So they did have that. But aside from that, we haven't seen a full-fledged Mario game since Odyssey.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, we're feeling pretty overwhelmed.
Yeah.
It's pretty intimidating. It's just, it almost makes you want to check out sometimes. And yeah, it's kind of a problem.
Yeah.
We're curious to know if like other people feel this way too, just the general marketplace.
I think so.
Yeah.
I think people buy way more games than they'll ever play.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, for me, like, I have an analog pocket, which is this device that lets you play like original Game Boy cartridges and things. So like over the last couple of years, I've been acquiring all these old Game Boy games that I also want to play,
right?
And games that I own that maybe I never finished when I was a kid. And I've made time for some of that over the last couple of years.
Yeah.
But it's like there's still so much I want to do in the past,
right,
as well as the present and the future.
Same. I do a lot of retro gaming, and it would be nigh impossible to be both a retro gamer and a modern gamer at the same time.
I mean, I'm just a gamer.
Yeah.
I just play what I feel like playing at the time. And like for me, like I love replaying the old Pokemon games. Like the original ones on Game Boy and Game Boy Color. Like once a year I could play through a Generation 1 game and like Pokemon Red, Blue, or Yellow, and then a Generation 2 game, Gold, Silver, or Crystal. Mm-hmm. And I could do that every year. Like, it would never get old to me.
See, for me, there's so many retro games that I haven't played that I could be playing retro games till the end of time. You know, games on Genesis I've never played, games on Super Nintendo I've never played.
And then you have people today creating games for that old hardware, which homebrew is really cool.
Yeah.
And these, you know, some of these homebrew games nowadays are of a bigger budget than like what I apologize if you're hearing the Easter egg in the background right now. By Easter egg, I mean a children like going, la, la,
child running around screaming.
But I mean, some of these homebrew games are like incredible in their scope for the hardware, and like they're pushing the hardware in new ways that they didn't think to do back in the 80s or 90s.
And the optimization tools and stuff are better now.
Yeah, so it's really exciting. Yeah, if you are a retro gamer, you're into old games. Like not only do you have the old games, but you have the new games for the old consoles.
Right, exactly, and it. Like that just adds to the pile in a way. Like, you're not gonna play those over the AAA games.
Yeah, I've been picking up like homebrew Game Boy games over the last couple of years.
But have you been playing them?
Some of them I have. Some of them are brief experiences. Like I can buy them on itch for like $2 or $3, and they're like 1-2 hour games.
Right.
You know, so it's like those are nice. You know.
Yeah.
Because a lot of old games, when you think about it, were not super long experiences. You see people like run through them today, and you go to YouTube and you see a long play of the whole game in like 45 minutes, you know? Yeah. So it's not impossible to kind of play those games, but I've definitely picked up more than I played.
Right.
But at least there I'm only spending a few bucks at most. And I know I'm really supporting like a solo indie dev.
Right.
Or like that purchase probably puts a huge smile on their face every day.
Right. And I am more drawn to the idea of indie games over playing AAA games, just because I know it's something I can finish with a relatively small investment.
Yeah. Although these indie games are largely getting larger in a lot of ways.
Right.
And their teams are bigger, and the names attached to these indie games are not so indie.
Indie games are starting to split into multiple categories.
Yeah,
definitely.
Yeah. I think we'll have to get into that discussion another day.
Yeah.
But I think we should move back to the news for a little bit. Does that sound good?
Yep.
We've got some updates on some physical versus digital developments in the world of games or otherwise.
Yeah.
And a big piece of news that doesn't directly relate to games, but it kind of does, or it's at least it's telling.
It sets the stage.
Best Buy has announced as of Q1 2024, which means by the end of March of 2024, they will no longer sell DVD and Blu-ray movies and TV shows in store, and even online they won't sell them anymore.
Yeah, that's a bold move, I feel like.
I think I get taking it out of in-store, because there's probably not a huge amount of people shopping in-store for movies on DVD and Blu-ray. But to even cease selling them online, that blows my mind. And now, what's funny is that Best Buy has a lot of exclusive, like, versions of like Blu-ray and 4K Blu-ray movies where they have like a special steelbook that comes bundled with it that's only found at Best Buy.
Right.
And these things sell out.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of shocked to see that Best Buy is just like, we're just going to lose that whole aspect of our business.
I guess it takes up a big portion of the store floor.
Well, from what I've seen, the last few times I've been in Best Buy, the selection of like DVDs and Blu-rays, movies, TV shows in store is pitiful.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's relegated to a few small aisles that are like, 10 feet long, not like, 50-foot aisles like you see at other stores.
It's been a while since I've been in a Best Buy.
And just from what I've heard online, but I mean, like I said, online they have a lot of exclusive releases that they do. Mm-hmm. And I don't know, man. So that's kind of wild. This is the first piece, the first chess piece to fall. Yeah,
this is the first step toward just digital taking over.
Yeah, I mean, movies have largely... There's not a huge amount of people, I think, still buying a lot of physical movies.
I think movies are less collectible than games. I don't know how many collector's editions of movies you really get. That might be a thing.
I mean, I'm sure there's people like us that would like to get our game signed. There's people that probably like to get like movies signed and things like that.
Like hardcore movie buffs, maybe.
Yeah. Like, for example, this weekend I'm going to an event at Gallery Nucleus for the sequel to Chicken Run, which you may remember as this stop motion
I do remember
claymation film from the late 90s, early 2000s, maybe early 2000s. I can't quite remember.
It's kind of bizarre.
Yeah. But they're the same people that worked on that film created like Wallace and Gromit, which is like a groundbreaking stop motion.
Yeah, they're claymation specialists, right?
Yeah, 100%. And so I picked up a couple. There's a few guests that are going to be there, so I did quickly order some stuff on Amazon for like $10 each, some movies that the guests worked on. So I will bring those to get signed. But yeah, like that's not a big part of my collecting habits.
Right.
But yeah, I think my shelf of like movies is only like maybe 20 or so titles.
Right. I have a lot of movies. They pretty much exist in boxes.
Yeah.
They're in a storage unit.
It's
not a completable collection.
No.
It's
every
not,
DVD ever.
It doesn't make sense. And what even defines... Like, you would have to have all kinds of parameters if you were a movie collector.
Yeah, it would have to be, like, only by, like, this set of, like, distributors or movie houses or that kind of
this
thing.
Actor or this director.
Yeah. I guess you could potentially do, like, I want every Nicolas Cage movie.
Right.
Like, that would be an achievable...
Right, you would have to set those kind of parameters. But there's no, like, complete library, like with games. Like, that doesn't exist.
I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna have a Nicolas Cage shelf. I'm gonna have a Keanu Reeves shelf.
You go for it. I'm less passionate about films. I don't hate film, but I prefer games.
Yeah, I know. If I have free time, I'm playing games.
You're wasting your time watching a movie.
I mean, I do like to watch movies, but yeah, like 9 out of 10. Well, no, I would say 49 out of 50 times, I'm gonna play a game over watching a movie or a TV show.
100%.
Yeah. It's a rare case that I'm going to like stop gaming to watch something.
It's weird how society is so open to movies and less so to games,
You think that's still a thing?
There are way more people. I'm talking about just normal people.
Right. That look down on gaming.
Right. Or see it as... Okay. Not maybe look down on it, but see it as a...
Juvenile.
Nerdy... still kind of a subsection of society. Average
it's way more widely accepted than
it used to be, but it's still not as widely accepted as movies.
I mean, I think it's almost impossible to find anybody 60 or under who has not played video games at some point in their lives, at least in the United States.
If you include mobile games, I'll give you that, but if you don't, then no, that's not true.
Well, I do include mobile games.
Okay. Then, everybody has. Because that's not really...
Someone plays Tetris on their phone? They've never played a game before?
I'm not talking about Tetris. I'm talking about Candy Crush.
Okay, yeah, Candy Crush is far-reaching. But I mean, I don't know, dude. I think more people have probably played Tetris than Candy Crush.
You're missing my point. There's a lot of normal... It's not... People are not sitting down to play a game.
Right.
As, you know...
I get it.
The way they do a movie. Like,
sure.
It's not...
Sure, like when people play Candy Crush...
There's no one out there who doesn't watch movies.
Yeah.
There's no one. Like, you can't find me a person who doesn't watch movies.
Sure.
You will find plenty of people who don't play games.
I think that has mostly to do with the fact that it's interactive and you have to learn how to do something. Right, and you have to
use your brain.
Yeah. Whereas like a movie is purely a passive experience. I mean, there's analysis that's going on in your brain, depending on the film.
Yeah, right.
Some films are deeper.
I'm not saying movies are mindless, but there's a skill level involved. There's interaction involved. Right. You're in control.
Yeah.
You know, and if you die, it's on you.
Yeah.
You know, yeah.
I agree. I mean, I will say, like, people don't bat an eye as much as they used to. I mean, are there some people that still look at it?
Right. I'm not saying that it's... Okay, when I say that most people... Or, you know, that more people watch movies than play games, I'm not saying that those people necessarily shun games.
Right.
I'm just saying they don't play them.
Right. Well, for me, it's like there was a time where I wouldn't be necessarily, like, keen to tell someone that I play video games. And now I don't feel like I have to worry about that.
Yeah. No, that's true, but that's different.
Yeah.
That's a different, like, discussion.
Okay. Well, back to Best Buy for a second. They have said video games are unaffected at this time.
Which is just delaying the inevitable, it feels like.
Well, I think they still sell a lot of games. I do wonder how much they sell in-store, but I'm guessing online they still do very good business there for video games. I feel like most people don't walk into a store to buy their physical video games anymore. Most people, I think, purchase them at various retailers online. Mm-hmm. Because I haven't... I mean, well... Once in a blue moon, Best Buy will have like a deal that's only available for in-store pickup or something like that, and I will go to a Best Buy. Excuse me, I burped. I personally live in kind of a Best Buy dead zone. Mm-hmm. I'm like 20-25 minutes in any direction from a Best Buy.
Yeah.
Like, you know, north, south, east, west, there's a Best Buy 25 minutes away from me. So I don't go too often.
I live fairly closer to Best Buy locations. They just don't have what I need.
Yeah.
Like, I can find what I'm looking for at Walmart, usually.
You know, I mean, even Walmart. I've been in there lately. They have a better selection, for sure, in store. But it's not as good as it used to be. I do know, I was at Target last week, and the video game section is really shrinking. The only one that's particularly large is Nintendo's section. Mm-hmm. They have a full aisle from start to end, just Nintendo.
Right.
But I do notice they have a lot of digital download cards.
Yeah.
Where you pick up the card and you scan it at checkout and it prints a code on your receipt. But like the Xbox and the Xbox section is like nothing. It's like an end cap practically.
Right.
The PlayStation section is like 2 or 3 sections long. And we're talking, when I say section, I mean like, I don't know, 4 feet or so.
So like half an aisle.
Yeah, maybe about half an aisle or so. But yeah, Nintendo still seems to have the biggest physical presence in retailers.
I think Nintendo probably has the biggest reach right now, at least. Yeah,
I mean, most Nintendo fans, especially adult ones, have probably been Nintendo fans for their whole lives, I would guess.
Right.
You tend to have... There doesn't seem to be a lot of people that find themselves drawn to Nintendo later in life if they weren't initially drawn to Nintendo early in life, if that makes sense.
Right.
I feel like, you sort of have these people who found gaming in their 20s or 30s, and like they think Nintendo... They still have this prejudice against Nintendo where it's like kiddie or something, like Mario.
Right.
That's for babies.
I can understand that. I think Nintendo's really opened up more to M-rated games and stuff like that.
They've come a long way from when they used to like shun that stuff. They don't even allow it on their platform.
Right.
And now they've realized, hey, like, why are we being prudes? There's money to be made here.
Right. They probably also know that, like, people are growing up.
Yeah, they want to play those games.
Right.
I heard an anecdote on another podcast. Nintendo. Oh God, what is it called? Nintendo used to have this weekly thing they would publish on YouTube called Nintendo Minute, and it had these two marketing people from Nintendo on it, Kit Ellis and Krista Yang, I think their names were. They quit Nintendo a year or two ago and started a podcast, and they talked about sitting down in like a meeting, and Nintendo like now kind of breaks it down into like 3 categories. Well, I specifically remember they have like family friendly games, they have like mature games, and they have pervy games. Okay. Like they're like, there's like these 3 elements, not pervy as in like you need to kind of balance these 3 things in order to like, so they kind of see like Fire Emblem as sort of like not pervy per se, but there's usually like this relationship. Some of the character designs are more provocative, and things like that. And so I don't know where I was going with this.
Okay.
But yeah, I think Nintendo knows that they have to appeal to more than just the family gamer, the clean,
right, okay,
Christian gamer.
Yeah, I don't think that Mario is geared toward Christians.
I mean, I just think that Mario isn't going to offend a Christian.
Right.
Like, there's nothing offensive about Mario. So
I think like. Yeah, they want to stay like clean.
They want very clean. Yeah.
And but
that's gone.
Yeah, I don't know if it's gone.
I mean, Mario is still clean.
They still are the one console holder
that has a family-friendly image.
Yeah. Like they
still have that.
That's
even though they've ventured into other territory.
Right.
Yeah.
That's kind of like a. That's They haven't become like PlayStation is mature.
Yes.
Like, no one's going to think PlayStation is a children's toy.
I mean...
My Nintendo Switch is bright freaking red and looks like a toy.
I mean, I specifically bought the Nintendo Switch that didn't have the, like, super color poppiness to it.
But I'm saying that you'll never see this from PlayStation. They're not going to release something that looks like
No, they're not going to... Well, yeah, they're not. No. They're really not. I mean, they have Astrobot, which is family friendly.
Yeah, they do have. I mean,
they have some
Spyro
IPs.
And,
Well, they.
Yeah, that's no longer with them.
That's Microsoft now.
Damn.
I know, isn't it crazy? You can't claim that as a PlayStation property anymore.
I mean, yeah, it'll always be on PlayStation. Like, it started on PlayStation.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, Sony is not without their child-friendly, family-friendly.
There's less and less of it, though.
Yeah, there is.
There's so much less of it now.
They're shifting too.
Yeah, they're 100% like catering to late 20-somethings, 30-somethings, 40-somethings. Like, that's their core audience.
Right.
Which, I don't know, is that a mistake? Like, a long-term mistake? Like, okay, because 10, 20, 30 years go by, and now you've been ignoring the younger crowd.
We're all in hospice, and then the young, they're not fostering. But see, those kids are going to grow up to the point where they're going to be looking for M-rated games, and then they might jump on the bandwagon.
I guess. I mean, I don't specifically go out of my way to look for M-rated games.
No, I don't mean...
Yeah.
I only play M-rated games.
Dude, there are people out there like that.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
All right.
Teen plus or M-rated only.
I'm a purist.
If there's not boobs...
My favorite game is Guns. Manhunt 2.
Postal 3. I'm all about Paperboy.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that's a good game.
Dude, a good game? I don't know. That game is like tough as nails, dude. Getting it in that mailbox? Good luck.
It's tough. But Paperboy...
It's like game over after 30 seconds.
Paperboy on Game Boy, man.
Oh, really? The Game Boy? I need to look into that.
Yeah, dude.
I need to investigate Paperboy for Game Boy.
I've put, I don't know how many hours into that game.
The only Paperboy I ever played was like in second grade in my school computer lab on some Mac on giant-ass floppy drives.
Oh, yeah.
Or floppy disks.
It was a very early Game Boy title. It might have been a launch title.
Okay.
I'm not sure.
I'll have to look into that. Yeah. Thank you. I did not know Paperboy was available on Game Boy.
Oh, yeah.
So there's one other piece of news regarding some physical and digital stuff, and this one is more optimistic.
Mm-hmm.
It comes from an interview largely having to do with the Activision Blizzard Microsoft merger.
So it's not so much an interview as much as it is an internal Q&A with one of their strategic suits, Chris Early, who happens to be the man in charge of the negotiation with Microsoft during this Activision Blizzard merger. And
so you might be wondering, what does Ubisoft have to do with this merger?
Right. So Ubisoft offers their own cloud gaming. So now I don't know how many people are providing. So Microsoft is providing cloud gaming, and we already talked about PlayStation providing it. So we're moving in that direction.
Yeah, I mean, it's becoming a thing. Hopefully it remains just an offering and not so much the only.
That seems to be what Chris Early suggests in this Q&A, because one of the questions is basically, what do you think of the future of physical media in games? And he replies that he doesn't see it going away.
Yeah, I have his exact quote here.
Yeah,
Let me read it for you. Okay, let's see here. So the internal question being asked to Chris Early is, what do you think of the future of physical media in games? Chris says, there's a collector edition market. There's the aspect of gifting physical items and allowing access for people to be able to easily purchase a game in a store and gift them to their friends or family. Some people will always want to own the physical disc. I just don't think it's going away. Do I think physical sales might get lower over time? Sure. But will it ever completely go away? I don't think so.
Yeah. So a real quick devil's advocate point here. I don't know if what he's saying about collector's editions market is necessarily true, because one problem I've had is seeing these collector's editions include a download code, and I believe we've talked about that before. Yeah. But the rest of his point, it's reassuring to hear him say internally with Ubisoft on their website that basically these big companies, they understand that the human aspect of wanting physical, property.
So Ubisoft is one of the premier third-party publishers on the market, meaning they put games on all three major consoles. Now with Activision Blizzard merged with Microsoft, when it comes to the really big guns, we just have EA and Ubisoft. Maybe Take-Two, I guess, would also be another big one. Mm-hmm. So there's less and less big third-party publishers. But that's what Ubisoft does. They make games and they put them on all the platforms.
Yeah,
generally
they're very multi-platform. They're also one of the more corporate type of environments in the industry.
I think all the big AAA studios are. What's interesting about Ubisoft is they have a very big worldwide presence. They have studios on every single continent, I think. They have studios in China, they have studios in India, they have studios in Europe, they have studios in Canada, they have studios in the USA, they have studio in Singapore.
They're definitely one of the biggest players next to EA and the others.
Yeah. You take away EA Sports from EA,
right?
And they don't have a whole lot.
They don't.
Ubisoft at least, puts out a wide variety of things.
I think EA's been around longer.
Oh,
they've been around since Genesis,
probably not much longer, but they've been out longer. Yeah.
So the bigger picture of this internal Q&A is talking about Ubisoft Plus, which gets related pretty heavily to the merger between Microsoft and Activision Blizzard. Ubisoft, Chris Early has negotiated on behalf of Ubisoft with Microsoft that Ubisoft Plus will carry the exclusive cloud streaming rights for all of Activision Blizzard's properties.
Now, this is in response to certain regulatory bodies in Europe.
Well, this is the general scheme, minus certain regional exceptions where the government will not allow this.
Right.
In Europe, the Q&A talks about an initiative or a law called Bring Your Own Game, which basically guarantees gamers in those regions cloud streaming rights for free if they own a copy of the game, digitally or physically.
It's interesting. Some of these European territories, countries, have very protective laws for the consumers.
The consumer, right.
But it has had sort of a counter effect towards the consumers in some cases, where some games don't even release in those countries anymore.
Right.
Because the laws are so protective, they would have to modify the game so heavily to essentially function in those regions that like the companies just see it as not being worth their time to even release it there.
Yeah, that it's definitely a trade-off. Europe's probably not the worst with that. I'd say probably mainland China is. But
well, yeah, it's a whole other.
Yeah.
But it's just select countries, though, in Europe. It's not like the whole European Union has adopted that.
That's true. I think it's mostly Eastern
That being
Europe.
said, I do appreciate that the European government, or more European governments of countries seem to be more aware of the kinds of things, especially in regards to like loot boxes and these really predatory.
Yeah, they're very in kind of like in touch with what companies are, then the direction that they're trying
to whereas take. If you asked any U.S. senator what a loot box is, they would not be able to tell you.
They're going to tell you it's a box with loot in it.
Yeah.
But this is the exception to the rule.
Right.
Right. So outside of these regulatory regions, Ubisoft Plus is going to have exclusive rights to streaming. That includes Call of Duty.
Right.
Despite what Microsoft said about Sony still having access to Call of Duty.
Right.
Sony will still have access, but not for cloud streaming.
Right. Well, it would have to be distributed via Ubisoft.
Oh, that's true, yeah. Is Ubisoft Plus available on, like, Sony?
If it is.
If it is.
Yeah.
Right.
But again, my understanding of this is that Microsoft only gave this concession essentially because this merger was going to be blocked otherwise in certain territories, which meant that Microsoft would have had the whole deal would have fallen apart if they hadn't made this concession to give Ubisoft these streaming rights.
What I got from the Q&A...
Well, again, you're just reading this. You have to look at the whole picture, too.
Okay, well...
There's more of that than just what's in that interview.
Sure.
Or that Q&A.
What Ubisoft is saying is that the reason that Microsoft chose this route is because they see the cloud streaming history that Ubisoft has, and because Ubisoft was one of the first to support Stadia, and ever since has been involved in the cloud streaming direction. So Microsoft doesn't want to start something new, a new service.
Right.
They said, let's have Ubisoft handle our
Yeah, but they were told they had to find someone else to hand these streaming rights off to.
Okay.
Otherwise, the merger would be blocked in certain territories, which meant the whole merger would have fallen apart.
I'll take your word for it.
Yeah, that's exactly what happened.
Okay.
Like, Microsoft's not just doing this to be like, here, Ubisoft, here's a bone. Like, the only reason they did this was because they were forced to.
Okay.
Yeah. The interview is largely Ubisoft tooting its own horn, or this Q&A, because they're like, oh, Microsoft saw us as, we're the best partner.
They're kind of giving their take on what happened.
I mean, and maybe they were the best partner for Microsoft's quickly needed solution to make sure the acquisition occurred.
Right.
But anyways, to me personally, the thing that is most important to me out of this discussion is that Ubisoft, one of the biggest game publishers on the planet, doesn't think physical games are going away anytime soon.
Right. Specifically, Chris Early doesn't think they're ever going away.
Right. And Chris Early being, a public spokesperson for Ubisoft.
Right.
And that means that statement is Ubisoft approved. 1,000 eyes went on this thing before Ubisoft published this on their own front-facing blog, effectively.
Right.
So I'm optimistic that that makes me happy, because that means like definitely the next generation of consoles, physical's here.
It's assuring to hear them acknowledge that, there is a human trait that wants to own physical property.
Right. And, yeah, exactly. Like, people still want to own their game.
Right, and that's not lost on them.
And it's a significant enough portion of their customers that they still value that as being necessary to do.
Right.
It's not like where it's like, well, it's only 5% of people, so we're okay with just losing them.
Right.
Right. So that's good. I think that's really good.
Now, Ubisoft is not a console holder. It would be better to hear a console holder say something like this.
Right.
But Ubisoft doesn't really have a say in what direction the industry goes necessarily.
No, but I would guarantee you that, their discussions do occur behind closed doors between these big publishers and the major console holders. Like, they're clued into what these console holders are doing years before the public ever is.
Right. No, I get that.
All right, so there's our update for this week on the physical digital lore.
Mm-hmm.
But now we're going to move back to a topic we discussed the past couple weeks. The Pokemon Van Gogh Pikachu promo card.
Yeah.
There's been a few developments on this. So yesterday, these cards became available again. Now, you had to spend $30 on the Pokemon Center website.
Yeah.
On trading card game products specifically. Originally last week they announced that they would be available again soon. Nobody knew when, and literally they didn't tell anybody in advance. They were just like, all of a sudden they're available, and
right.
It took about an hour or so, but they finally ran out of the promo cards, and but at least people were able to buy them. The site didn't crash. I was able to secure another order for Rick because I know he really wanted that promo card.
Yes, thank you.
And the website was having issues. Like, if you tried searching for trading card game products constantly, 0 products would be found. But eventually I was able to refresh the website enough times that I was able to get some products to appear. And I just tried to find something as close as I could to the $30 mark. And I just placed that order. And I went through. I got the confirmation. Hopefully things start shipping soon. They haven't said anything about there being issues with people's orders. So I'm hopeful that it will stick.
Yeah. And the Van Gogh Museum stopped giving it out because people were harassing the visitors.
Right. So there were basically scalpers posted right outside the museum on the street or right out of the door, harassing people, grabbing people's promo cards out of their hands.
That's crazy.
Creating like an unsafe, dangerous situation at the Van Gogh Museum.
That's like Popeye's chicken crazy.
Yeah. First of all, I'm shocked. I mean, I guess I'm not shocked.
No.
That people are behaving this way over Pokemon.
We know how these cards, how crazy people get. Last time McDonald's put out a collection, people were,
during the pandemic for the 25th anniversary, the lines out of McDonald's were insane.
People were just going through, buying as many as they'd be allowed to, and then going back through.
Go right back in line and buy some more. I definitely purchased my fair share of those Happy Meals. But I wasn't quite going back in line over and over again. I'd wait a day or two before having some more McDonald's.
Right.
But
that's a lot of
it's a lot of Happy Meals,
apple slices and stuff.
But that's what you do. You sub out the fries for the apple slices, and it's not so bad.
Right.
It's a reasonable meal. So the card is just no longer available, period. You can't get it at the museum anymore. Pokemon centers are fully sold out of the cards. That's it. If you didn't get one, you're not getting one.
Yeah, this whole thing was a giant bungle. It was just, from beginning to end, just a train wreck.
And you gotta imagine, anyone now, so let's say a year or two from now, Pokemon approaches someone else and says, hey, we want to do a collaboration with you. Another museum or another artist or something like that.
Right.
They're going to go like, well, we saw what happened last time.
Yeah.
You think we want any part of that?
I don't know about that.
Dude, that's a lot of bad press.
Yeah, but it's Nintendo and it's Pokemon.
So now it's like unsafe to go to the Van Gogh Museum because there's like dudes out there ready to shank you for your Pikachu card.
That's just nuts. But I mean, maybe, hopefully, the Pokemon Company learned a lesson.
Yeah. That
they should maybe have security at these kinds of things when there's a promo card, especially a high-profile promo card involved. We'll see if they learn their lesson. But yeah, the whole thing was a giant bungle. I can't say whether a future, partner will deny them on this ground, but because
the Van Gogh Museum is not like, that's a pretty sophisticated place,
right?
I would say, like we're talking about Vincent Van Gogh here,
right?
Like a huge collection of his artworks, and you've got Pokemon, which was probably already kind of a stretch. There were probably some people that took some convincing to like have this kind of, very pop culture thing crossover with this very classical, appreciated,
right,
kind of, lift your nose in the air
kind
of thing.
Right.
Prestigious, yes, understandably so.
Yeah. Oh yeah, Vincent Van Gogh.
Yeah. So yeah, I don't know. Like they better have their act together next time. I mean, maybe the museum is a little bit to blame, especially for what happened there with just their handling of how they chose to distribute the cards.
I don't know that the Pokemon Company would necessarily be responsible for providing security and all that kind of stuff.
No, I agree, but maybe just they allowed it to, like when the museum store
they should have stepped in.
Yeah,
definitely. Maybe this Vincent Van Gogh Museum didn't know what they were getting into.
Yeah, well, probably a big lesson learned for everyone involved.
Yeah, I hope so. We'll see.
It makes me think that, because like I mentioned in a previous episode, they did a similar collaboration with another famous artist at a museum in Japan. And I don't think they had these kinds of problems there. Right. But I mean, I think that has a lot to do with the kinds of cultures.
That was still crazy though, wasn't it?
It was, and that card is very valuable.
Yeah.
But not like people practically stampeding, and trampling each other and stealing from each other.
Just mugging each other outside.
Yeah, to get the merchandise and promo cards.
Yeah.
That's really sad. But that's what things have devolved to. Over Pokemon cards.
The fervor.
I mean, isn't that crazy though?
Yeah.
That the fervor for Pokemon
is
still just as intense as it was in 1998.
Yeah.
1999.
It's like a violent fervor.
It almost brings a tear to your eye. It's beautiful.
It is. Was it that bad in 98? Like, I know it was freaking popular. It was everywhere.
It was.
But were people mugging each other in 98?
Oh, you don't think? Dude, I'm sure someone lost their life over a Pokemon card. I mean, stores were like ripping each other off, like selling the cards for like $10 a pack. People
were like...
I mean, it was like gouging and just, I actually have a great example.
Go for it.
Okay, so I was a kid. I had my Pokemon cards, and there were some older kids in the neighborhood who I knew. And I brought my binder or my deck or something like that to show them my cards. And later in the day, I come home and I'm looking at my cards, and I'm noticing that multiple cards, multiple holographic cards are missing. So yeah, people were stealing cards even back then. Dude, I mean, think about like Charizard cards. I mean, they're worth even more now.
Right.
But even back then, they were like $2,000, like crazy stuff like that.
Yeah.
I mean, it was... Oh my God, I have another great example.
Go ahead.
All right. So there was this store when I was a kid where I used to go to buy Pokemon cards, kind of in this sort of a, not really an indoor swap meet, but it's like this building, and there were different units inside of it, and each one had a different shop. And one of the shops was a card shop. And I would go like once a month to see what cards they had on display, make some purchases, trade some cards in that I had extras of, that kind of a thing. And there was one day, me, my brother, and my grandpa who would take us there. We walk up the stairs, we go to the door, We push it open, and all the display cases are smashed. Oh. The whole place is trashed.
Wow.
Like, there is stuff all over the ground. Everything is gone.
Yeah. Wow.
Everything is gone.
That's crazy.
And that was 2000 probably.
Now that I think about it, I knew a guy who got in trouble for stealing from KB Toys back in the day. Like a bunch of Pokemon, those little minifigures. I don't know if you remember those.
Like they came in like a capsule thing or something?
Yeah, they're like the size of your thumb.
Okay.
Like, yeah. They had every Pokemon, like all 151.
So yeah, I think we just answered your question. Yeah. The fervor was just as insane back then as it is now.
We weren't shanking each other because we were kids,
but we would have been.
Yeah, we would have been
if we were adults. All right, we've got one more story to talk about here. We're here to talk about the brand new voice actor for Mario. The character of Mario.
Yeah.
So back in, I think it was August, Nintendo announced very publicly that the current voice, the long-time voice since the early 90s, since Mario Paint, I think it was, Charles Martinet would be retiring as the voice of Mario and essentially passing the baton to the next generation.
It's not like Mario was voiced much before Mario Paint.
No, I mean, there were some animated projects and a live-action show, but...
Super Mario Brothers Super Show.
Yeah. But I think Mario Paint was maybe his first role, or at least major role. But really, Mario 64 is where we heard Mario talk.
That's the definitive...
get really involved for the first time. So Charles has been doing that role ever since that time, and it was kind of a strange announcement initially. People were like, "What? Why? Like, he's still healthy, he's still active, he still goes around to cons and things. Like, why would he need to? Why would he need to retire?"
At these cons, he would I remember he'd record people's voicemails and stuff for them.
But I actually met Charles a couple times. You've met him too.
Yeah.
But I had one particular experience at San Diego Comic-Con. I think it was 2011 or 12. It was around the time the 3DS first launched. And they had this really cool thing in the Nintendo Lounge where it was like this screen built into this kiosk, and Mario was on the screen. And you could walk up to the screen, you had your turn, and everybody got 3 or 4 minutes with Mario. And you could talk to Mario, and he was fully animated, and he would talk back. He would speak back to you what you were talking about. And it turns out Charles Martinet was in another room just off to the side, wearing a suit and actually talking to people as Mario, answering your questions, just having a conversation with you. I mean, this was crazy.
That is crazy.
And I actually looked into this deeper. I can't remember what it's called, but Nintendo basically had this special software, this special program made so Charles could do this at events. And then later during Comic-Con that year, he was out at a table just signing stuff for people, handing out these really nice prints that had him on a headshot with all the characters surrounding him.
Yeah.
And he signed it, wrote a little message, and he scribbles all around the characters their different little sayings. I actually have it here with me right now. I'll get an image of it up on the blog for the companion post for this episode.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
And it's even more so now that he's retired.
Right.
Now Nintendo is giving him a very specific new role, something they've never done before. He is the Mario ambassador. For Nintendo.
A new position is made.
So I guess they're still keeping him on the payroll. And he's still allowed to essentially proclaim that he's Mario.
So was a reason ever given for this change?
No, not really. And after a few weeks after the announcement, they put out this video that was kind of underwhelming, where it was Mario and Charles and Miyamoto, Mario's father, the creator of Mario.
You can call him Mario.
Mario and Miyamoto we're sort of having this back and forth, but I originally thought it was going to be like an in-person conversation between the two of them, maybe with a translator. Mm-hmm. But no, it was like two clearly pre-recorded messages that they like stitched together.
Oh, okay.
That like, I don't know, it was just kind of, it was a little odd. Like I was hoping for something a little more memorable for Charles. But it's not like he's gone or anything. I mean, remember when Reggie Fils-Aimé retired? Yeah. I mean, they put out this like very emotional like video of like
he was talking about like Bowser. What's his first name?
Yeah, Doug Bowser, the new guy taking over. I mean, and it was like I was expecting something more like that for Charles. You know, essentially retiring as Mario.
Right.
And so it wasn't a very satisfying video for me. But yeah, so it's been a mystery. Nintendo didn't say who would be voicing Mario as of the new Super Mario Wonder game. Mm-hmm. And one thing I want to add about Charles before we move on to the new voice actor. So Charles goes to cons a lot now.
Right.
So like he'll go
probably more now, right?
Oh yeah, more. Even I think that was a big part of. He was like, okay, I'll retire, but I still have to be able to represent Nintendo and be the official, you know, like be
if that was like his initiative to negotiate that's a great move on his
then
part.
Definitely, yeah. If Nintendo was like, here's some, you know, thing you can do, that's kind of messed up.
Yeah, like you can't sign artwork or that would stink.
But what's crazy is, you know, I got this like headshot thing for free, signed by him, customized, everything, 100% for free. He was just at a local convention here in Long Beach earlier this year. He charges $80 for a signature.
Yeah,
that's crazy.
For me, I would pay that. Like if I didn't have access, you know, to him in the past, like
honestly, he's one of the few voice actors who is probably worth paying for if you really want their signature, because
Mario,
yeah, like
who else?
Yeah, there's like, no other. Yeah, there's no one else that is bigger. Is a bigger name. I mean, maybe Pikachu.
Pikachu's had a lot of different voice actors.
No, that's not true. The same voice actor the entire time.
Anime and games?
Yes.
Wow.
They actually use the anime voice actress for...
Okay, so real quick.
Okay.
the Pikachu voice on the Nintendo, or the Pokemon Go Plus Plus. Mm-hmm. You know how Pikachu talks?
Yes.
That's the same person?
That's the anime voice actress.
Wow.
Yeah. It's a woman, by the way.
Right. Yeah, of course.
So yeah, like through Pokemon Yellow version, they use the anime voice actors for that.
Wow.
Yeah.
I did not know that.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I mean,
I was under the impression there's been like 5 different Pikachu.
No.
Okay.
So aside from now, it's a Japanese woman.
Yeah. Right,
like they don't need to redub Pikachu for America.
There's no English translation for Pikachu.
There's nothing of that is needed. The human character will explain what Pikachu is saying.
Right.
So I mean, aside from Mario, I'd say Pikachu is maybe a close second.
Yeah. I could see that.
But I can't imagine there's much of anything else. I mean, okay, here's something to note about Charles, is that he's not just...
Yeah, he's not... Yeah, that's a good point. That's a really good point.
He's not just Mario.
He's Luigi? Or no?
He's Luigi, he's Wario, he's Waluigi, and he's Baby Mario and Baby Luigi.
Yeah, so he's not just Mario, he's the Mario Brothers.
Yeah. And... he's half the Mario Kingdom.
Yeah.
Let's be honest.
Yeah.
So, yeah, Charles, big part. I'm honestly really sad to see him go. Now, I will say I'm glad. Nintendo, while we didn't know who the voice actor was until last week, we have heard the new voice actor's voice in Super Mario Wonder. And instead of trying to, like, go with a new take on it, we are getting someone who is essentially imitating Charles.
Yeah, right. True.
So similar to like the tradition of Mickey Mouse always sounding like Mickey Mouse,
right?
At least Mario is always going to sound like Charles Martinet.
Right. I mean, as well as this next guy can perform.
He does from what I've heard, it's pretty convincing to me. It's like the tiniest bit difference, but I can almost tell you if Nintendo didn't announce that it was a new voice actor, I don't think people would have really picked up on it.
Okay.
I mean, until like they saw the credits. I mean, there maybe are some people who are like big Charles fans or something, and like no,
that's not him.
Yeah, they'd be like, that doesn't sound like Charles. And you know what's interesting is there's that remake of the Mario vs. Donkey Kong coming to Switch. The
remake of the
Game Boy Advance game that's coming out next year.
I want to play that too.
Yeah, that actually sounds like Charles.
Oh, that's this guy?
No, it seems to be that Charles will be Mario again next year in that game. Like people have compared the voices, and they're like, people have said like, okay, it really does sound like Charles is the voice. It must have been that game was recorded a long time ago.
Okay.
Before they recorded Super Mario Brothers Wonder. So it's interesting that Charles will still have maybe one more game coming out next year that he was the voice of Mario in, even though a new Mario voice actor has already taken over.
I would pay $80 to get that game signed by him.
As his last voice role for Mario. Me too.
Yeah, that's really cool. Another point, a few points. One is that Nintendo owns so many clips of Charles' voice at this point. I feel like they could just voice every Mario game, to a certain degree.
I think there might be laws against stuff like that, reusing.
I mean, I'm sure they could negotiate his permission, but like,
I mean,
they have the assets to.
Right.
How much does Mario really talk? Really, like he doesn't speak.
My understanding is that pretty much they record every time they make a new Mario game. They get new lines from Charles. Yeah, they don't really too often reuse assets, even though he is largely making a lot of the same. So, I mean, think of all the sports games that they've done with Mario and company. I mean, like, he does have to make different noise, like different sounds,
Well, then you get this new guy to do those ones.
Yeah.
That's how I feel.
Okay, so they should reuse Charles, not pay him.
No, they could. I mean, they could.
He
could negotiate royalties for permission.
You got to wonder, why is Nintendo not just like, well, we have all these Mario voice clips, let's just train some AI module thing onto it.
Yeah, there's that
and
too.
Have it. But
I mean, okay, like that's a whole.
That's a can of worms.
That's a freaking
it's a huge
rabbit hole, but.
I mean, I'm glad that they're not.
Yeah.
Because personally, I feel like doing that is really crappy.
Yeah, sure.
To just like, we have enough of you, we'll just use AI to make something sound
I'm not even suggesting that. I'm just saying, use Charles's clips for, at least just the gameplay sounds that Mario makes.
I mean, they could.
Yeah, they could.
But they're not. It doesn't seem like it. They've got a new voice actor, and his name is Kevin Afghani. And I believe he's LA based, Los Angeles. He's pretty young. I think he's like mid-20s. So Nintendo has chosen someone who could be Mario for a very long time.
Yeah.
This is really his first big role. He's only had a handful of other voice acting roles. And it's interesting. I guess it makes sense. Nintendo probably wants to find someone who's cheap.
Right.
They don't want to hire like some big name voice actor to do the Mario things.
That's a win-win because that gives new talent the opportunity to do something big. And also Nintendo doesn't have to pay as much.
I mean, imagine this guy's life is like forever changed now.
You're right.
Even if hypothetically he only did Mario Wonder, he is now like in the pantheon of like Nintendo. He could go to conventions the rest of his life, charge $30, and people would.
He might not be okay if he only does one game. Hypothetically, he might not be set for life financially, but his resume is made.
Dude, I've seen people on the con circuit for less.
Yeah,
like a tiny 30-second role in a movie. And they're on the con circuit, and I see them, charging $30 for their signature and like a selfie,
Yeah, right.
So I don't know, like people can make a living out of this stuff.
Oh, yeah. Surprised. I see your point. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, presumably he'll have a long career with Nintendo ahead of him.
Hopefully, I wish him the best.
I did go to his website. I listened to some of his voice reels. He sounds pretty good as a voice actor. And I'm excited for the guy. That's gotta feel incredible. I don't know. I just do wonder: is there a story behind Mario or Charles, not being Mario anymore?
Yeah, I mean, of course there is.
I mean, he was, largely pushed out of the Mario movie. He had a small role as like Mario's father, in the which was a nice touch. I mean, they didn't have to include him at all.
Right.
Let's be honest. They could have just completely pushed him out of the movie. Instead we got Chris Pratt sounding like Chris Pratt.
Yeah.
Not even trying to be Mario.
That was actually my single biggest reason I didn't go see that movie.
You still haven't seen it?
No.
It's fun. It's not something I would want to sit down and watch more
again.
Yeah, I don't know that I'd watch it again. I mean, if they make a sequel, I might watch it in advance of a sequel or something. But it's not something oh man, I'm going to revisit this, every few years to watch it again.
If Martinet had voiced Mario, I would have seen it every day that it was in theaters.
It was in theaters for a long time. It's the number 1 or number 2 highest grossing film of the year, which is crazy.
Yeah. I mean, I hear good things about it.
It's fun.
I'm not crapping on the movie.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to see it with Chris Pratt.
You'll never see it.
I don't know. I'll find a way.
Wow.
I'll find a way to see it just for my own information.
Okay. That's okay. I didn't realize you hadn't seen it yet.
Nope.
So one other thing I want to talk about is Charles. His kind of signature catchphrase in the games has always been "Mamma Mia."
Yeah.
So in the new Mario Wonder game, Super Mario Brothers Wonder, that's coming out Friday, 2 days from now, a day from now. Mario and friends have a new catchphrase.
Yeah.
Wowie zowie.
So do we have any reasoning behind this, or any story, lore, or anything kind of pertaining to this, or is this just new guy wants to do something new?
No, I highly doubt this is the new guy being I need a new catchphrase. I'm sure this is something Nintendo has come up with. Okay. I don't know if it's just going to be for Mario Wonder, or if it's maybe intentionally, maybe they see Mamma Mia as sort of being an Italian stereotype or something like that.
Right.
So maybe they want to...
That occurred to me too.
Maybe they want to... it's interesting. It's the same amount of syllables. Mamma Mia. And then you have wowie, zowie. So it's really not a different catchphrase.
It is 100% different. It's a 100...
It's still an exclamation.
You're rewriting history. Exclaiming. You're straight rewriting history with this.
I mean, yeah, he's saying something new. We don't know if Mamma Mia is not uttered during Super Mario Brothers Wonder, but from all the marketing we've seen thus far, it's all about the wowie zowie. And I don't think it sounds bad when you hear it said. It sounds like something Mario would say.
Okay.
All right, so you clearly don't like that this is happening.
No, not at all. Not at all.
I mean, yeah, well, how often does Mario say Mamma Mia? I know that's just what everybody associates Mario
with.
Right,
I don't remember him saying that in a game anytime recently. I believe he said that a lot in the cartoon.
Yeah. I almost think it was just a thing that he did say from time to time.
Right.
And it just sort of became part of the zeitgeist that
maybe
Mario says
Mario
Mamma
64,
Mia.
I believe he did.
Yeah. Someone needs to do a really big deep dive
that's
analysis.
A deep dive for sure. But Wowie Zowie is just
it's got no pizzazz.
Lame. It's lame. Yeah, not my...
You don't like it?
No.
You don't like it?
Not at all.
Okay, wow. I did not know when I put this in our discussion topic that it would be so passionate about it.
If the reasoning is Mamma Mia is an Italian thing, that's weak. A
stereotype.
That's weak. The guy's name is Mario. He is Italian.
I mean, yeah, if you look at the movie, He's clearly from an Italian family in like Brooklyn or New York somewhere.
Right.
So I mean, and I think he says "Mamma Mia" in the movie. I actually believe that line is uttered.
Which movie are we talking about?
I'm talking about the newest movie, the one that Nintendo wants you to think about.
Right. Okay.
Not the classic film starring John Leguizamo.
You can't dismiss that film.
No. I actually don't. I think I have an even greater appreciation for it as time goes on.
There's actually a lot of like backstory behind.
Oh yeah. I mean, it's what a movie.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
What a movie. Like.
Yeah. There's never, like, there is nothing else like it, nor will there ever be.
It's if you look at it, like, from a lens, it's very, like, avant-garde and interesting and, like, worth...
Some liberties were taken.
Yes, definitely. And I think Miyamoto has been quoted at some point as saying it was too similar to the games. That's why it didn't do well.
Yeah, so he said that he thought that the movie... it was too much like the games, and that's why it didn't do well. 3 points. Video game movies don't do well because they're so far from
the movie often.
The freaking game. And then it was nothing like the game.
Right. And
also there was another point.
I just don't think you can really do Mario live action.
No.
That's tough.
No. SNL did a skit for a Mario Kart movie.
We talked about this a week or two ago.
But it looked right. To me, it looked kind of right.
It looked like Twisted Metal.
Yeah. Yeah. It was gritty and stuff. But that aside, though, I think the like visual looked right.
Right. But I mean, that would just be hard to take seriously beyond like a 60-second fake trailer.
Right.
For a TV show or movie that doesn't exist.
I wouldn't know because it doesn't exist. But right. I mean... for that, it looked.
I could see like Zelda getting a live action adaptation.
That would have to be done extremely carefully.
Oh,
extremely carefully.
You know, I do wonder now that Nintendo has seen such monumental, massive success with the Mario movie. Are they going to see like, okay, we got all these other properties. You know, like what do we do?
Well, I mean,
for Zelda, I don't know. I feel like
if they did a Zelda movie and it was 3D animated, I wouldn't have any problem with that.
See, I wouldn't be.
That's very neutral, and I would be down because I think they'd make it look, with this big sense of realism, and they would go pretty hard on high quality.
Like, are you talking like Square Enix-esque kind of?
Probably.
Okay.
I could see that
sounds expensive.
Yeah. Well, I mean, so was making a live-action John Wick film.
See, I would see more like... I think an anime film would be better for Zelda. Like a Studio Ghibli, like very high-end anime, like...
At Studio Ghibli, I'm going to correct you.
Oh, thank you. But yeah, like, like you see a lot of animes today and it's just mouths moving half the time.
Right.
Like, I think they need someone with pedigree who can, like, make a very beautiful film. I think Zelda would fit, like, that kind of a scope of work.
Regardless of the animation style, save for maybe claymation or something, I think they're dodging a lot of pressure if they went that direction. If they go a live-action direction... Oh,
yeah. The heat is on.
The heat is on.
Yeah.
So anime, 3D animation
is a lot safer.
I
agree. Yeah. Okay, so in this hypothetical tangent that we've gone off on, they make a 3D animated Zelda movie.
Sure.
Link talks the entire time.
Yeah, so that's going to be a problem. That would be the dumbest mistake they've ever made.
So, if you don't know...
That's a big statement.
Link doesn't really talk in Zelda games. Now, there are times where you do select...
He is a silent character. He's as silent as... what's his name from Half-Life?
Okay, but there are times where you select dialogue options, and clearly the character you are talking to hears that dialogue.
In the newer games. Oh, yeah, it's suggested... I think the Wind Waker was the first to do this, but it is insinuated that Link speaks to other characters in
right.
the game. But you never hear him, and you don't read text.
You only hear grunts.
You only hear grunts from Link, and you see a ... from him.
Most of the
That's
time.
the only text you'll ever see. And that's still a silent character in my book.
Right. I mean, if everyone else in the game is constantly speaking and constantly... Like, even in the newer Zelda games, they give, like... there are cutscenes that are fully voiced. Obviously, Link is still silent.
Right.
And then, even out in the world, all the characters kind of have, like, little noises they make when you first talk to them, so you can kind of get a sense of their voice. Mm-hmm. Even though, like, all their dialogue is not voiced.
Right.
But Zelda, or Link, I should say, sorry, never speaks beyond when you select dialogue.
Right.
But again, that's not really
even
portrayed as speech.
Right.
It's more like the player is selecting an option. But the characters that Link is engaging with do seem to respond to the selected dialogue.
Right. So it's insinuated speech.
Yeah. But still doesn't go so far as to actually give him a voice.
The point is that a delineation is made between Link and his speech, quote-unquote, pattern, and other characters and their pattern.
Yeah. It'll be, I'm sure, in our lifetime, within the next 10 years, we're going to see Zelda enter the multimedia space. Mm-hmm. Beyond video games into either a TV show or an anime or a film of some sort.
Nintendo needs to keep a very tight grip on that, and I usually don't vouch for that, but with this, they need to make sure that it's done correctly.
Yeah, I mean, Mario movie had the look of Mario nailed down very well. Obviously, the voice actor just
didn't even try.
Yeah,
it seems like,
I don't know. I'm sure they're going to see the massive box office success and think we made the right choice rather than just having. Right. I mean, do you really want to listen to 2 hours of Mamma Mia? Here we go.
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
I mean, I do. I would kill if they did like the Martinet cut,
right,
where they have him dub over the whole movie. That would be incredible.
That's what you're getting ready for when you go to see a Mario movie.
Yeah.
I
mean, at least they didn't trick people and you never saw him talk during the trailers and they're like, oh man, here it comes.
At least they were forefront about it.
They communicated that, hey.
So people like me who that's a deal breaker can know that.
All right, I'm going to sit this one out.
Yeah.
I mean, and they did give him a role in the film, which is more than they had to do.
Right.
But, it would have been nice to hear from him more in the film.
Definitely.
But I think that's pretty much a wrap on episode 4, unless Rick has something else he'd like to share.
Nope, that is it.
All right, so we'll see you next week.
End transmission.